The Planning and Zoning Board public hearing, Wednesday, March 20th. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. If you have not filled out a blue card and you're here to talk about anything on the consent agenda, you need to fill out a blue card right away and bring it down to one of our staff members. Otherwise, it will stay on the consent agenda. So far, we just have two blue cards. One is for item 4D, so we'll be pulling that item off the agenda. The other blue card is actually for an item on the regular agenda anyway, item 6A. We'll just give just a minute to see if there's any cards coming up here. Doesn't look like there are any. Just make sure to see if he is. Sir, are you filling out a card in the back there, a blue card?
No, I was just
Okay, all right, didn't want to leave you out there. Okay, then we'll go ahead and read the consent agenda. Board member Villanueva Saucedo has agreed to read the consent agenda for us.
It's from the February 19th, 2019 and February 20th, 2019 study sessions and regular hearing. Zoning cases ZON 18-00988, District 6, within the 7200 block of South Ellsworth Road, east side, located north of Germain Road on the east side of Ellsworth Road, site plan review and special use permit. This request will allow for the development of a convenience store with associated fuel station and car wash. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 18-01002, District 6, within the 7200 through 7300 blocks of South Ellsworth Road, west side, located south of Pecos Road on the west side of Ellsworth Road, site plan review. Request will allow for the development of a restaurant with drive-through. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 18-01010, District 5, within the 3400 to 3600 blocks of North Greenfield Road, east side, and the 4400 block of East Virginia Street, north side, located at the southeast corner of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway and Greenfield Road, site plan review. This request will allow for an industrial development. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 18-01014, District 1, within the 800 block of North Country Club Drive, east side, located south of Brown Road on the east side of Country Club Drive, site plan modification. This request will allow for the expansion of an existing Child Crisis Arizona facility, continuance to April 17th meeting. ZON 18-00806, District 6, within the 3100 to 3400 blocks of South Ellsworth Road, west side, located north of Elliott Road on the west side of Ellsworth Road, rezoned from LC-PAD and PP-PAD to LI, site plan review and special use permit for reduction in parking. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 18-00933, District 6, within the 10800 to 11600 blocks of East Williamsfield Road, south side, the 6000 to 6300 blocks of South Signal Butte Road, east side, the 6000 to 6300 blocks of Mountain Road, west side, the 6000 to 6500 blocks of South Mountain Road, east side, and the 6000 to 6300 blocks of South Meridian Road, west side, located south of Williamsfield Road, east of Signal Butte Road, rezoned to modify an existing PAD and site plan review. Request will allow for the modification of the PAD for single residential development. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 18-00980, District 5, within the 2600 block of North Power Road, east side, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power Road, rezoning from RM-3-PAD to RM-3-PAD and site plan review. Request will allow for multi-residence development. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 19-00016, District 6, within the 7100 to 7600 blocks of East Elliott Road, north side, and the 3100 to 3500 blocks of South Sossaman Road, west side, located north of Elliott Road and west of Sossaman Road, rezoned from LI-PAD-PAD and PEP-PAD-PAD to EO to create the Red Hawk Employment Opportunity Zone. Request will establish zoning to guide future development of employment and industrial uses. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. ZON 19-00070, District 6, within the 8000 block of East Ray Road, north side, located west of Haas Road and the north side of Ray Road, rezoned from AG-AF to LI-AF-PAD and site plan review. Request will allow for an industrial development. Staff recommendations approval with conditions. Preliminary plats, Greenfield Industrial, District 5, within the 3400 to 3600 blocks of North Greenfield Road, east side, and the 4400 block of East Virginia Street, north side, located at the southeast corner of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway and Greenfield Road. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. Springs at Red Mountain, District 5, within the 2600 block of North Power Road, east side, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power Road. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation approval with conditions. The Landing 202 District 6 within the 8,000 block of East Ray Road, north side, located west of Haas Road on the north side of Ray Road. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation, approval with conditions. And those are the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I would like to make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as read in for the record on March 20th, 2019.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Everyone vote, please. Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. We'll go ahead and talk about items on the regular agenda now. Item 6A. Oh, I'm sorry, 4D. Give me just a second here. This is case ZON 18-00984, District 4, within the 700 block of South Stapley Drive and the 1200 block of East 8th Avenue, located south of Broadway on the east side of Stapley Drive. This is a request to rezone from RM3 and OC to NC BIZ in a site plan review. The request will allow for a commercial development. The staff planner is Wahid Alam. Wahid?
Good afternoon, Chairman and member of the board. As you have just mentioned, this is a rezoning from RM3 and OC to NCBIZ. At that street corner, there is a small tax professional office building existing now. So they have bought the property to the north, which is vacant now. So it's a attempt to kind of revive that corner. So that basically that's how their proposal is. So when it will be done, you'll just see an additional retail building for multi-tenant. They don't have a specific tenant yet. And so staff worked with them with all the new setback and right-of-way requirements by the city. So that's why it's a rezoning that staff supports it, and it's a good addition and kind of enhancement of that intersections. With all those, staff recommends approval with conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Wahid? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to speak? Is the applicant here?
Why is it taken out of?
Protax Financial Services LLC. The architect? Adaptive Architects, Inc.? Wahi, do you recognize anybody here that might be associated with this request? Interesting. Haven't had that happen before. Yeah, I have a blue card though. Well, since there's nobody here to speak on behalf of the applicant, we do have one blue card. This is from Don Douglas, and it says you just wish to speak, but doesn't indicate if you're in favor or you're opposed. Would you like to speak? And if you do, please come on up to the podium for us.
That's the wrong one. Chairman.
Oh, you're not 4D?
Yeah, I think they're here for the apartment complex.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, well, that's weird. 4D, but that's for the wrong item. Okay, thank you. Hang on, we'll be to that item at some point here. Okay, well, that was interesting too.
I think we moved up then because the one that he's here for is the one on Powell Road, and we approved that on consent. Right? Didn't we?
Well, aren't we doing 6A? Isn't he wanting to discuss 6A?
Yeah, 6A is on, we'll be talking about that
Just,
after
I guess,
4D.
how did we get to that?
Yeah.
That's the question.
I don't know.
That would be a question for the city attorney.
Can
Charlotte?
you pass this down maybe?
I think the one that he's here to speak on is that apartments on the Springs, and
Oh,
we
it's
approved
not
that on
that.
consent. Okay, sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought it was talking about the item on the regular agenda.
Well, we did the same thing too on the agenda.
That's okay.
So, for example, look at this recap. 4D is 94.
What is your direction?
Madam Chair, members of the board, so one of the board members can actually make a motion to remove that item for reconsideration. So, motion to reconsider the item. Because of the new information that had just come in.
Let's confirm which item. Yeah, it's 5. Let's see here.
We should just ask the blue card.
Mr. Douglas, would you mind coming up to the podium and just confirm for us which item it is that you are here to talk about?
Just explain, we've got a little.
Sorry about that. We had it on our card as one item, but it's apparently not, so.
It's 4C, and the companion case is 5B. That's what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry to make you come up there. I apologize. Thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
basically came to ask a couple of questions about the springs. That's the one on Power and McDowell Road.
Okay, so that's item 4C, McDowell Road, east side of Power Road, correct? Okay. Sorry to make you, we're going to reconsider this.
Couple of questions, should we?
Yeah, just hang on right there until we get to where we can discuss it.
Yes. So first, we have to have a board member make a motion to reconsider this
Reconsider,
item,
okay.
and then we'll open it up,
Okay.
have staff, and then have you, give you an opportunity to ask your questions.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, so when that motion is made, the board has to approve that motion
Right,
before
okay.
it can move forward.
Okay.
So,
So,
Madam Chair, I will make the motion that we reconsider item 4C and the companion item 5B on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I think you have to read it in.
And the reason being because of the additional information that we just received from the applicant, from the resident.
So I will add to that motion, the grounds for the motion for reconsideration is that there was a mistake made on the speaker slip, which didn't correctly identify the item that the speaker wanted to address today.
Thank you.
That's correct.
I second that motion.
Okay, everyone please vote. Okay, so the motion to reconsider this item has passed unanimously. So now I will go ahead and just read real quickly into the record what the item is, and then we'll get to your questions as soon as possible. So this is item ZON 18-00980, District 5, within the 2600 block of North Power Road, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power. This is a rezoning from RM-3-PAD to RM-3-PAD and a site plan review to allow for a multi-residence development. There's a companion preliminary plat. Well, if it's all right with you, we'd like to discuss that at the same time. Okay, that would be item 5B. Mr. Alam, would you like to make any comments at this point, or shall we just let the gentleman ask his questions? And is that all right with the staff? Okay. Sir, if you could just state your name and address for the record. and
Donald
then-
Douglas,
Thank you.
6713 East Manning Street in Mesa,
Okay, thank you for,
right across the street from the Springs.
okay. What are your questions that you have?
I have a couple questions. Most of them are going to be quick answers, nothing very detailed. I had submitted some questions via email to Wahid a while ago. I got some of those back, but I need clarification on some of them. According to one of the answers I got back, there's going to be no curb cuts. Is that just restricted to the median, or, because I thought they were going to put a driveway in? to this.
Mr. Alam, would you like to answer that first?
Then there's another question that in there that they answered, that there's going to be a crossover between LA Fitness parking lot to get back in there. So I'm curious, is there going to be an entrance into it, or do they go through the parking lot of LA Fitness to get in?
Chairman and member of the board, one thing we can do is, looks like Mr. Don has more questions, so he can have all his questions. In our audience, we have our traffic engineer. She can come and explain that.
Okay, so
However
our
way
traffic
you want
engineer
it.
should be able to address both of those
Yeah.
questions. Okay, if you could just give us a little bit of time, we'll invite our city traffic engineer up to the podium
Okay.
and answer those questions.
Shall we wait, or shall I ask the other questions?
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Can you move the mic closer to your mouth? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay. It does say that in the answers that I got back, that the current road, the highway, the Power Road and McDowell Road is able to handle the additional traffic that these 350 to 400 cars are going to add to our neighborhood. It says that other roads in the Mesa area handle double that volume. With the addition, if they put an entrance into that development within less than 1/8 of a mile, there will be 7 entrances and exits into and out of businesses in less than 1/8 of a mile. I was curious, how does that compare with other roads in the area that they say can handle this volume of traffic? And right at the end of that 1/8 of a mile, is a intersection of Power and McDowell. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to get into and out of these businesses. I live there, I see it all the time. People wait, people line up behind them, they get antsy, there's a small break in traffic, and they try to nose out and jump in. People blow horns, people get angry, and sometimes there's fenders bent. That's a lot of area, I mean, a lot of egress and to get in and out of businesses in a short area. And I'm just wondering how that fits in with the rest of the roads that they say can handle all this. Traffic can probably answer that. I guess Continental Properties, did I have anybody here?
Yeah, the applicant, yes, behind you, we've
Okay.
got the representative and the applicant.
I saw an article, I read it several months ago, where the city of Mesa is looking for low-income housing areas, which this area needs. But I'm just curious, I have nothing against it, I'm curious, is this Springs going to be a low-income area or not? And apparently, they have 76 other properties that they've developed with apartment complexes in 24 states. It looks like they keep the ownership. Is management going to be local? Because they're actually headquartered in Wisconsin. So if they are going to keep ownership, is management of that property going to be kept local? Or is it going to be handled remotely from Wisconsin? And the last question I have is, there seems to be a change in zoning from one thing to another. What's the difference between those two? I think the one they currently have is multifamily.
I think what I would like to propose is to give the applicant an opportunity, if you'd like to come up now, and then we can have the traffic engineer come up, and then we can make sure that your zoning question is clarified. So I think we can handle all of your questions if you give us a little
Okay.
bit of time to give everyone time to speak.
That will work.
Yeah, I think that was your last question, right?
Yes,
That final one? Okay.
that is.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to come up now, Mr. Anderson?
How you doing? Good. Were you the guy that was answering my
Yes, I'm Reese.
email?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can stay wherever you want, but usually they take a seat right back there.
I will do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Easier for me to say.
Yes, I'll just do it. Madam Chair, members of the board, always a pleasure to be with you. My name is Reese Anderson. I'm with the law firm of Pugh and Lake. Our address is 1744 South Alvista, number 217 here in Mesa. Madam Chair, with your permission, let me just focus on the questions that Mr. Douglas raised, and I promise not to steal any of Sabine Ellis's thunder, but I might dip in and cross over just a little bit. Let me just take them in reverse order. I think that might help us. I know my boss is here, Mr. Ralph Pugh. He remembers zoning this site C2 when his son was in junior high because he missed the football game to be there.
Oh, boy.
That tells you how long this firm's been working on this site. In 2005, 2005, this site was zoned RM3. At that time, we would have known it as a different district, but today RM3. So it's been zoned for multifamily for a long time. So you see a rezoning happening today from RM3 PAD to RM3 PAD. So no change in the zoning district at all. Moving to the next questions. This is not a low-income housing project, as you and I understand it. These are market-rate apartments, and in fact, Continental Properties is known for having above-market rate rents. The question about management, they hire local, but they self-manage. All of their properties that they own, they have their own management team, but they will hire local people here to run that. And so I hope that answers that question. I'll let Ms. Ellis talk about traffic issues, although I would just point out this. When you look at the Mesa Transportation Plan, and I've got a full presentation I can show you, I don't want to belabor or waste your time. You look at the level of service for these streets at these intersections, and they are by far lower, better quality than the rest of Mesa. And as you can see in Sabine Ellis's email, the traffic here can handle this. And so when you look at that transportation plan, it knew that this site was already zoned multifamily, and it took that into consideration. And so when, again, you look at those traffic volume counts, you look at the level of service, it already contemplated this being RM3. So is there any more median breaks being added to Power Road because of this project? No. It's utilizing the existing median breaks. Is there any more curb cuts being added to the side, the east side of Power Road? The answer is no. How do we get access? One, you can see in the site plan that you have in front of you there on the north side, there is a roadway that comes through, but that does not line up with the median break. So our residents that are coming that direction from the north to the south would turn in at the main entrance of LA Fitness and cross over there. And there is a recorded cross-access easement. That's how it was proposed and approved in 2005, and we're keeping it exactly the same today. I hope I've answered those questions. If there's any that I missed, please let me know, or if you, Madam Chair, or other board members have questions, please, myself as well as Eric Gum from Continental Properties here, we can talk at you at much length if you'd like.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Anderson at this point? No? Okay, I think we're good for now. We'll go
Thank
ahead
you.
and we'll invite the traffic engineer up, and we might have more questions for you.
Thank you,
after that.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Dalkey, members of the board. I'm Sabina Ellis, and I'm the city traffic engineer with Mesa. And Mr. Anderson could have taken my job. He spoke really well. Again, the development is already considered in the zoning, in the general plan. The roadway is a 6-lane arterial. Really can handle this kind of traffic. And with that, I'm not concerned about having additional congestion that's very noticeable due to the development.
So, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in other words, I mean, there's a lot of activity already going on, but the roads can handle the activity and the increased
Yes,
traffic
there is a
with
lot
it.
of activity. I agree with that. There's a commercial area, developments in that area that are active. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands the misconception of the road being not at capacity doesn't mean that it doesn't have congestion. We need congestion. We embrace congestion to a certain degree. Level of service was mentioned. That basically just means what we look at from a traffic engineering perspective. We don't want to design our roads without congestion because then they would be underutilized most of the time, spending a lot of money on that, and we might have this 10-lane arterial in our, city of Mesa, which we don't want. So there is congestion there, no doubt, but again, comparing to other roadways in Mesa and just generally known traffic engineering facts, the road can carry a lot more traffic. And the good thing about the neighborhood to the west is they have several ways in and out of the neighborhood. While they might not necessarily be able to make an eastbound left turn coming out of Northridge or Melrose in the PM peak hour, when it's very busy, they have a traffic signal at Hermosa Vista, which is really close, not a lot of additional time to get out of the way to come out, or they can go out on McDowell, make a right turn on McDowell, and then turn left onto Power to get to the freeway if that's where they desire to go. So that is an advantage of that neighborhood compared to some others that really only have a couple ways in and out. That is really works in their favor here.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? It looks like.
I just have one question. My question is that typical to have 7 curb cuts, I guess, within an eighth of a mile. Is that typical for Mesa?
It is typical for an area like this. I have to add that there's only one full access between McDowell and Hermosa Vista, and that complies with our access requirements. All the other driveways are right in, right out.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you. I maybe should have asked Mr. Anderson this question when he was up, but I'm still want some clarification in terms of how you get into the apartments
Yes.
off of Power Road. Is the access, is that a new road that'll come off of Power, or is it?
That
It's
is
an
not-
existing
It's an
road.
existing, yes.
It's an existing road.
There will not be any new driveways associated with this development. They will utilize what's already out there.
Okay, thank you.
Can we put up a picture of the site plan real quick, just so, double check?
So, and one thing I want to add is, I was here today, actually. I live in this area. I use these facilities, restaurants and banks and all that stuff all the time in that area. And this driveway, I would actually, with the landscape plan, I think it would be easier to tell, because sometimes I'll turn in there thinking it's the Wells Fargo or Del Taco, and it's not. So this might help with the landscaping and signage and stuff, clarify that a little better for us. I think that area moves fluidly pretty well. When there is accidents or anything that happens, this is a kind of an area where you see sometimes some pedestrian stuff, but that is occurring when I see people going across mid-block, pedestrians darting in front of us, six-lane arterial. I mean, that's just, you're asking for stuff like that. But yeah, this is all four corners, fully developed, big centers. I mean, that's why I would think it'd be typical to see that many driveway entrances, because you're just getting everybody through the site. I haven't, seen any problems with that. And then the LA Fitness that was just built, so this was a curb cut that was put in, I'm guessing, during that time, but, yeah. I don't see this really impacting anything other than having, it has quick access to the freeway, so you're not gonna be having them traveling through a lot of different areas. But it's also gonna be supporting the businesses that are still kind of teetering on if they, right across the street at the south, even on the southwest side, there's some business, retail space that is searching to be filled often, so this would help provide more incentives for them.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for our traffic engineer? Any additional? Okay, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks. I think we answered all of these questions. Does anyone have any additional comments for Mr. Anderson? No? Okay. Well, any discussion or deliberation, or is somebody ready to make a motion?
I would like to go ahead and make a motion. I would request that we approve ZON 18-00980, District 5, within the 2600 block of North Power Road, east side, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power, rezoning from RM3 PAD to RM3 PAD and site plan review, along with the companion case. And that was 5B. The Springs at Red Mountain, District 5, within the 2600 block of North Power Road, east side, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power Road, a preliminary plat. Both of these cases approved with condition.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, please vote. Okay. Board Member Boyle, there you go. Okay, the motion passes unanimously for item 4C. Thank you. Okay. Now we're back to 4.
Clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
District 4, within the 700 block of South Stapley Drive, east side, and the 1200 block of East 8th Avenue, north side, located south of Broadway and east side of Stapley, rezoning from RM-3 and OC to NC-BAZ and site plan review. Staff recommendation approval with conditions.
Okay,
I second that.
okay, everyone, please vote. Looks like, okay, that one passes unanimously as well. All right, now we are on to item 6A.
Yeah, exactly, let's do it.
There was more housekeeping items that I've seen in a while. So, okay. Item 6A, this is case ZON 18-00775 in District 6, within the 4,900 to 5,200 blocks of South Power Road, located south of the 202 Santan Freeway on the east side of Power and north of Ray, approximately 58 acres. This is a request to rezone from AG to LC-AF-PAD, a council use permit to allow multi-residential, commercial, entertainment, hotel, and college and commercial trade uses in the AOA 1 and AOA 2 and LC district, along with the site plan review. The request will allow for a mixed-use development. Okay. Would the applicant like to, no, I'm sorry, we'll go to staff, I apologize. Would the staff like to make a presentation? There she is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This is a presentation on Gallery Park, ZON 18-00775. Just to familiarize you with the site, at the north side of the site is the 202 Santan Freeway. At the west side is Power Road. East side is the RWCD Canal. And on the south side is Ray Road. And it's also adjacent to the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport here, kind of the east portion of the site. On this slide is the site plan that they've proposed, which is 27 buildings ranging in size from about 2,800 square feet up to about 370,000 square feet. The request is actually for a rezone to agriculture, or from agriculture to LC with an AF and PAD overlay. Currently, the site is not within the City of Mesa boundaries, but they have requested annexation into the City of Mesa. And that will be running concurrently with the rezoning to City Council. They've also requested council use permits for multi-residence in the LC district and the AOA 2 district. On the site plan, we have these diagonal dashed lines here that are occurring here on the site plan. This one at the northeast portion of the site is bisecting the AOA1 and the AOA 2 areas. This one here further to the southwest portion of the site is bisecting the AOA 2 and the AOA 1 area. So AOA 2 kind of falls right within the middle portion of the site. The commercial entertainment in the AOA 2 area is also a council use permit, which happens to fall in this building here at the back portion of the site. Hotels, there are 2 hotels proposed for the site, and college and commercial trade within the AOA 1 and AOA 2. Site plan review and preliminary plat for consideration are part of the request. When we're looking at council use permits, there are a number of them associated with this request. There are criteria within the ordinance. It's actually 1176, not 5 here on my slide. And we look at the general plan and the Mesa Gateway Strategic Plan. Specifically, this falls within the inner loop portion and the Gateway Economic Activity Area and District, and found that that the project is consistent with those areas of the general plan and the policies. We also evaluated based on the letter that we received from the airport, because of course we're looking at compatibility with surrounding uses. And we did receive the letter from the airport, and the concerns brought up if the City of Mesa did consider residential within the AOA 2 district, is that we look at the disclosure information to potential future property owners, filing of the 7460 for FAA requirements, navigation easement, and sound attenuation measures in construction, so reducing the sound within the building. And in my staff report, actually, condition 6, A through D, covers all of those portions of those conditions that were suggested. As part of this mixed-use development, looking at the site plan here, it's divided into 4 quadrants, A, B, C, and D. A has the pads along Power Road with some office, retail, restaurant space. B would be the offices and a structured parking there with some hotel and office use. A portion of this Main Street zone actually straddles all 4 quadrants. The Main Street zone would be kind of this really nice interactive piece of the development itself. The pictures here to the right-hand side are their renditions or depictions of what that Main Street area would look like, which could be a nice draw for the area. Area C, again, is more pads along Power Road, some office use, and then D includes this 420-unit residential, multi-residence apartment here that's closer to Ray Road. PAD modifications that were requested through this project include the building heights, which you have received the revised conditions limiting the height to 75 feet on the site, just for the buildings within quadrant C and D, which are closer to the east side of the site. There's also requests for reduction in landscape setbacks and materials adjacent to the canal and along Ray Road, and reduction in parking, looking at more of a shared parking model. This is where you live, work, play. As part of the PAD and justification for those PAD modifications, they submitted design guidelines, which are really nice design guidelines, shoring up this high-end materials and high-end design that they're wanting to bring forward. And it was reviewed by the Design Review Board, and they recommended approval to City Council for those design guidelines. In summary, it does comply with the general plan, the Mesa Gateway Strategic Development Plan, and conforms with those chapters associated with the overlays, the site plan, and the council use permit. I do want to mention that the airport is here to speak in regard to the height of the buildings, I believe, and also the multi-residence, which within the AOA 2 district that's in the center portion, and that really relates to the loft, the condominiums that would occur within lots 15 and 16 on the site that are part of this Main Street theme. It would be on the second story of those commercial uses that would be at the floor, or first floor of those buildings. Staff is recommending approval of the case with the conditions, the revised conditions that you have in front of you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. If it's all right with the board members, I was thinking that maybe what we do is invite the applicant up, and then we can ask questions maybe afterwards, after we've heard that, and then have the airport come up as well, instead of asking staff right now for questions. Is that all right?
Airport's comments are the ones most interesting to me, and I
Yeah,
might think have them talk first before the applicant so that there can be a response, but it's up to you.
Well, well, first of all, I want to apologize to the applicant because I wanted to say beforehand that the reason that I suggested we pull this off consent was to showcase this project. We're excited about it. It wasn't any concerns that I had. I just wanted the public to have an opportunity to hear about it. Those who couldn't be in attendance here, at least it's televised. So I forgot to say that before, so I apologize for that. But I would like to hear actually from the applicant first to give an overview, and then we can have the airport representative come up. So I think that's what we'll do. Mr. Pugh?
See if we can get this right, Madam Chair. I think the staff locked us out.
Uh-oh.
Tom did something over there. Just use these. So is it on? It's not right there. You still can't see it, can you, Madam Chair?
No.
We see the
can't
same thing as you
anything.
there.
Yeah. I think we've got our wonderful,
It looks really good on the screen right here.
I bet it does.
Slide it to the other screen.
There we go. We can see it
Oh,
now.
there it is, right there. Perfect. Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, it's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Ralph Pugh. My office address is 1744 South Val Vista Drive here in Mesa. It's really a wonderful opportunity to be here on behalf of Vivo Development Partners. In the back of the room is Mr. Jose Pombo and Devin Waschak, who are principals of the company, along with David Liu, who was unable to be with us today. We are very, very proud of this project and glad to be here. This is truly, at least to my knowledge, the only true mixed-use project of this magnitude in the city of Mesa. We're really happy to have our office in Dana Park, which was well done and well executed, but it's an element of a mixed-use project and doesn't implement nearly all of the components that this project brings to the table. It's at the right spot. It's at the Loop 202 and Power Road. It's at the entrance to the airport on Ray Road. And frankly, it takes the state land that's been there for years and wondering how it was going to be developed into a marvelous, great use here. We're grateful to Ms. Davis for her presentation, and I don't intend to go back through all that. Thank you very much. It was thorough. A few items to address, perhaps. Ms. Davis noted the design guidelines that go with this project. I think over the year of working on this project with the staff, a significant portion of time has been devoted to the boards, the products, the materials, the colors, the theming. Gallery Park in and of itself brings about users that have a gallery. It's meant to look like an art gallery and to have various users in the project have artwork, and there'll be outdoor components of artwork. There'll be outdoor spaces for gathering. This is one of those occasions where development occurs near the airport in a way that promotes high-quality development. It is not an area where some airports over the years tend to deteriorate because the area around it, the housing and other uses, tend to become sometimes less meaningful. They become blighted. They have issues. But in this case, this product is located, and this project is located at the exact right location to prevent that very thing. And in fact, to promote high-end development. The loft units that Ms. Davis was talking about at the end, which is the subject of the AOA 2 discussion, will be very nice loft units, and they're intended to provide for a need at that location. So we're excited to have offices, hotels, entertainment uses, restaurants, commercial, on a net 40-acre site, roughly. I thought maybe what we could do, if you want to, we can go through some of the really nice pictures, but I'd really like to address the issue of the loft units in the AOA 2 area. I'm sure we'll hear from the airport folks in a minute, but our position about it is very, very clear. When you look at the maps that the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport has, there clearly are lines. There's noise contours, there's decibel levels, there's AOA overflight issues. In the AOA 2 area, residential uses are allowed. It's just that this particular airport and the governing body of it has decided to continually, and rightfully so for them, encourage surrounding municipalities not to allow those uses there. And so what Mesa has done, and it's even illustrated on the airport's map itself, and I won't bore you with it, we can show you if we have to, but the AOA 2 area specifically says in Mesa, a single-family residential is prohibited in AOA 1 and AOA 2, prohibited. But multifamily uses are allowed subject to a conditional use permit, or a council use permit, I should say. So in this case, do we meet the findings for a council use permit? And the answer to that, in our opinion, is clearly yes. Those findings are pretty straightforward. Do we comply with the general plan? Yes. Number two, has there been a plan of operations submitted? Absolutely there has, because this is an integrated mixed-use project. Is there a good neighbor policy? That's the next question. Well, these folks that are going to occupy the loft units are going to be neighbors with restaurants, outdoor activities, entertainment centers, noise, activities, and intensity. And there's a policy about that because this entire site will be governed by declaration of covenants and conditions, wherein all those things will be managed, and there'll be a management system to deal with that. And the last finding is is there acceptable demonstration that the buildings are properly located and brought into substantial conformance with current city development policy? And I think Ms. Davis's report hit right on that at the conclusion. It complies with all those standards. So I know we're going to hear from our good friends at the airport. We appreciate and respect all the good work they do. I would simply ask you to ask yourself this question tonight on the lofts. Is there another site in contiguous and surrounding municipalities that will have this same condition? And the answer to that is no, certainly not in Mesa, because the area in AOA2 that remains in Mesa that is around this airport that has not yet been developed either has two constraints to it. One, it's not located in the right spot for a mixed-use development like this. Two, it doesn't have enough acreage. And three, the other reasons it doesn't work is because the general plan category that those properties are in doesn't allow this type of use. This is the only site in the AOA2 designated as mixed-use activity. Others are mixed-use employment, industrial, and other things of that nature. So for that reason, we believe this is not precedent-setting. And if you want to expand your scope beyond that, so someone brings a project in Queen Creek, let's say, and they want apartments. If it's just straight apartments and it's in AOA2, it doesn't compare to this. There's no comparison. There's not even an analogy. They're not in the slightest degree similar. So we urge you, board members, please do not worry about setting a precedent. And I know we'll hear from our friends in just a minute who will urge you otherwise, but this project merits your support. If you want to, we can go through pretty pictures, but I think the presentation by Ms. Davis gave you a feel for the quality that's coming. With that, Madam Chair, thank you for the minute to address this. We concur with all of the staff conditions, especially the height restrictions that were added late this afternoon. And condition number 6, with its 4 subparts, addresses the airport issues, noise attenuation, and other things of that nature that are required. We do have an acoustics engineer hired by the developer who will produce the necessary reports and certificates that verifies that those loft units meet the mitigation standards. That's it, Madam Chair. I'm done. I won't bore you anymore unless you have questions. And if I could reserve a moment of rebuttal if necessary based on what's said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pugh?
I have a question regarding condition approval 6. It talks about submitting items to the FAA regarding height, design, all that stuff. I don't know if you guys have submitted yet, but if anything comes back as a hazard, would you then be required to then revise your plans?
Yeah,
Or-
Madam Chair, Board Member Sarkisian, the answer to that is yes. So whatever structures we build have to comply with the Part 7460 or the Part 77. Don't quote me on all of that, but we have to comply with all that. And if they don't come back with compliance and satisfactory approach by FAA, we need to rethink it and figure out what to do.
Okay.
On the other hand, the same thing is true that there may be spots where additional height could be allowed, because this is the blanket issue over 40-some acres, net acreage of 75 feet. If there's an isolated spot where higher than 75 feet doesn't affect or adversely impact the geometry that the airport uses to determine those things, then there's a potential to increase the height if necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
But that would require an amendment because.
That would require an amendment and coming back to the process. Correct.
Anybody else? Questions? All right, thank you. I'm sure we'll have you back up.
Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and invite Mr. Bianchi up to the podium to share some thoughts from the perspective of the airport, it looks like.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Tony Bianchi. I'm the planning manager for the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport Authority. Office address is 5835 South Sossaman Road in Mesa. So given this project's proximity to Gateway, as we're all aware of, and the unique nature that Mr. Pugh talked about and Lisa talked about with this project, it's one that we've been following closely for a couple of months now. Through this process, we've been working with staff. We've been working with the Vivo Development folks on this as well. As mentioned by Mr. Pugh, there are aspects that we're most concerned with that relate to the airport. Those are the maximum heights as well as the residential development in the airport overflight area. So when we review these proposals, one of the things we look at is we look at compatibility for the overall land use. We look at flight safety considerations as well as airport capacity and operations. And that's the focus we take. So through this process, working with staff and the development team, we believe we've addressed the initial concerns that we've had with the proposed heights. Because what we want to do is we want to avoid any potential penetrations to our protected airspace around the airport. And really that 75-foot limit was really where that limit should be, because if we go much above 75 feet, we started to see some of those airspace penetrations. So we appreciate the amended conditions that have been provided this afternoon. So you do have a letter that was in your packet. It's from the airport. This is our long-standing position. So we just do not support any types of new residential uses within our AOA 1 or 2 areas. These are the areas most nearest to the airport. They're the most prone to overflight activity and the noise generated from those overflights as well. That's our airport guidance. So we take it out of our land use compatibility plan. That's our guidance addressing residential encroachment. Now, as an airport, we have no land use authority. So really, it's really left to the communities to go through their process and discuss that through there. So as we're well aware of, Mesa considers and vets these multifamily proposals, and as we've seen tonight, also other uses through their council use permits, through their findings of facts. So when we talk about these development proposals, not only in Mesa, from an airport's perspective, we have to look at other communities too, because we have to factor in other member governments such as Gilbert and Queen Creek into this as well. So what we do as an airport is we really look for a consistent approach and a stance that we take on these issues. And as Mr. Pugh talked about, we have to be aware of any precedent that might be set with residential approvals with adjacent communities. That's one of our concerns with this case as well. So there are a number of requested conditions that were in the letter submitted to you. Staff has included those. We've seen a willingness from the applicant to agree to those. Really, from the airport's perspective, that addresses our FAA height review. It addresses disclosure as well as flight safety considerations, as well as design review considerations too. So we've tried to cover this with a wide umbrella on that. So with that, again, our main concern is the precedent that's set when we introduce residential development in any form. Again, it's our longstanding position from the airport. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, we appreciate the time and consideration.
Thank you so much. Looks like we have a question
I
here.
have a question for you.
Yes.
Regarding the project design for the airport, as you can see, it's a beautifully designed site, beautifully architecture, beautifully landscaped project. How do you prevent or mitigate impacts with wildlife, birds?
So that again would be through design review considerations. Again, those are in there. So that would be if we have water features, if we have landscape features, how do we work through that? Again, that's why we have to coordinate with the communities on these considerations as far as landscaping types and things of that nature.
So there's certain trees that attract or detract, like some of the types of
Yeah,
birds?
anything that would provide, nesting opportunities for migratory birds, that sort of thing. If that were to include a water feature, again, we had preliminary discussions with the Vivo development team on this. They were aware of that. They listened to our concerns. I believe that's in the site plan that any of those hazards were removed or not included as well. And then as Mr. Pugh talked about, through that FAA 7460 process, any of those flight safety considerations would have to be addressed. So, and that could include not only height, but they may look of flash blindness, such as solar panels or reflectivity of design materials, things like that. All of that can be referred to through that 7460 process.
Okay. Any other questions? Board member, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments, Mr. Bianchi. I really appreciate the vigilance that the airport puts into looking at these areas around the airport, because that is a tremendous asset that we have in the city of Mesa, and we've got to preserve that engine of economic activity. So I appreciate your vigilance here, and I want to also tell Mr. Pugh and the applicant that I appreciate the work they've done in working with the city and with the airport to try to address these issues. I think this is a fabulous project. I think that what's been done is going to mitigate, I think, to a large extent, the concerns about the residential piece. The question, I just wanted a little bit of clarification on the south end of the project, the larger residential housing piece, or multi-residential housing piece that's in the AO3 contour. Is that also of concern to you, or is it primarily the townhomes or condos that are above the commercial in the, is it the AOA 2 contour?
Yes, so Chairwoman, Board Member Crockett. Yeah, if you are in the AOA 3, residential is a permitted use. It's kind of funny, we have those delineations, those overflight area lines that relate to those contours. Noise, we realize, doesn't stop at that line, but however, that's the delineation we have. So if you're in that AOA 3, we have no objections to that.
So is it fair to say that the airport's primary concern was what I think are maybe approximately 40 units that are in that AOA 2 contour?
Yes, so our guidance is any sort of residential within the AOA 1 or 2, we just don't deem as compatible. However, that's why it's through the municipal process. If they deem that it should get consideration through a separate council use permit process, we understand that, we respect that, but our guidance to the communities for airport protection is that. But we realize that, the communities have to do what's in the best interest for their projects, so.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, one more question, if I might. You heard Mr. Pugh explain that why he doesn't believe that this is precedent setting because of the fact that there aren't other properties in that AOA 2 contour that would lend themselves to this type of development with some multi-use residential. Are you persuaded at all by his comments on that?
In my opinion, no, because I look at that and say, again, he's presenting to the city of Mesa. As an airport, we have to deal with towns of Gilbert, Queen Creek, Maricopa County, Mesa. So anything that is a precedent that is set, we know that other communities, other applicants and landowners will probably look at and try to use that if they were looking to do a similar type of request in those other communities. And our stance would be the same as I've come forward to you today.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Board Member Boyle.
Yeah, so the AOA 2 designation, is it primarily, what's the theory behind it? Is it primarily noise? Is it primarily just the airplanes coming over and wind or something? Like, what is it that makes that that corridor something that needs to be avoided?
Yes, so Chairwoman, Board Member Boyle, yes, basically that works, that's really, it's related to our 60 DNL or day-night level noise contour. That's based off of the noise generated from the aircraft over a sustained 24-hour period. 65 is what the FAA is very concerned about. And then when we get down to the 60, that's kind of marginal compatibility as well. So it's where the highest levels of overflight and noise generation are. So it's just those areas just off the runway where the planes either gain a little more altitude or they're coming in a little higher. So that's why you can kind of see the way the consistency of those AOA boundaries is.
So it's noise, it's not that a plane would crash there or things falling out or anything?
That's where we get into the flight safety considerations. As an airport, as you can see, we've got buffer areas, we've got runway safety zones, protection areas that we try to accommodate for that. And then the other land use compatibility we work with the communities on. So really the flight safety considerations that we talked about, that's why we stipulate or ask the request of the condition through the FAA's process. Because the airspace itself, that belongs to the FAA. We as the airport just we abide by what the FAA's determinations are on that because the airspace is their domain, but it's up to the airport and our local communities to protect that airspace.
Okay. And then one more, Tony, do you get a certain amount of complaints already about noise? Is there and is it a lot? Is it a little? Where does it typically come from?
We do have a noise complaint line. You can fill a complaint out online. Sometimes they're just single events where people notice it. Sometimes if they see sustained activity, they'll call it in. Typically, when they do contact, we do have a community relations manager. He will try to make contact with any folks that respond to that, especially if they want an inquiry back, try to talk through that level of activity depending on where their location is. But we do get noise complaints. They can fluctuate depending on time of activity, even time of year, especially this time of year when most folks start to utilize pools and open up their windows and so forth. They become a little more sensitive to it. But the numbers are, several hundred a year. We can get you, if you want specific numbers by year or something, we could get those to you, but they fluctuate. But I'd say several hundred per year, and a majority of them come from the town of Gilbert.
Are you able to tell, do they mostly come from landowners and private residences and like not from apartment buildings, not from businesses?
Predominantly single-family residential.
Okay.
Yes.
I have just a question for staff regarding when they get complaints or the city gets complaints for the noise. Obviously, the builder will build, the nice insulated and all that stuff to make sure the noise isn't as bad. But if they do get complaints, and then the city council has approved the use permit, does the city just say, we've approved the use permit and there's no retaliation? We don't want, where can it end just because they approved it? There's no anything that they can do further there, or how does that work?
Madam Chair, members of the board, so with the criteria for council use permit, the city council actually has the authority to revoke the council use permit if they are in violation. And I know it's going to be difficult for an already approved multifamily or multi-resident users, but this is based on the mitigation measures. We strongly believe that the mitigation measures that are going to be put in place will actually reduce the noise decibels. So that's where we believe. But if there is any complaints, we will be able to go out and maybe do re-inspection to make sure, the buildings are really insulated to meet those decibel levels.
Okay, so as time goes on, if they need to do new windows or do something like that, they would go out and check out why they're having so many complaints? Or just in the future, if hopefully it never happens, but I'm on worst case scenario, that's how I am. Or in the future, if they get so many complaints, the airport wants to scale back because they're having issues, which they've just announced all these new plans, the city could then revoke that use permit to make sure the economic viability of the airport isn't compromised.
Yes, and that will also be in violation of the approved ordinance as well. So.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Bianchi. I
Yes.
think we'll give Mr. Pugh an opportunity to come
Thank you,
back.
board members.
We might call you back. You never know.
Okay.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just very briefly, it's very critical to a mixed-use project of this nature to have loft units. That's why it's mixed use, and that's what brings users to the site. Without that and without these lofts, this project and its viability is highly suspect and, for a better word, sketchy. So they're needed and they're envisioned in this area. With all due regard to my friend Mr. Bianchi for all the years he served on, didn't you serve here and in Gilbert? Yeah, on both planning commissions. There is not another parcel within the AOA 2 area in Mesa or Gilbert or Queen Creek that has freeway access, arterial location, mixed use activity area designation, which promotes this very zoning district. It just doesn't exist. So the precedential value of this is really negligible. If you're simply saying no residences, period, then make that your precedent. But if you're not willing to kind of split some hairs here and define what type of residential it is, then I don't think the precedential value is there. That's our view. And we really want to be here. We really want to make it successful. And with that, I think all this conversation about the airport began with the old conversation about barbecues and pools. Y'all remember our good friend Scott Smith? We love Scott, the former mayor. That was his favorite saying, right? We don't want people out there with their barbecues and pools complaining. He's right. This is not that. This is loft living at its best. Thank you, Madam Chair. members of the board.
Thank you very much. All right, any more questions for staff or anyone, or?
Can I
Looks
just
like-
see if I understand that? So it's just the AOA 2, so technically, and it's those two buildings. If they were like 300 feet to the south, there wouldn't even be a conversation, right? Is that so it's just the location of them. And I get it, the way the thing's designed to come down the road and everything like that. That makes total sense, but that's what puts them over the, I just wanted to double check. That's the real thing there. And then question for staff. The thing that comes to my mind with the noise and the complaints and everything is the Vulcan plant, which is up in Lehigh, that was there, and everyone knew it was there, and they were advised. They told the people moving in that it was there and everything, and they still got a number of complaints, and that they're to where they have to do additional studies and research, and they're starting to, because of the number of complaints, they're starting to have to pay additional money, which we don't want to happen here. Do you know a little bit about that, and is this different in some way, the way that the notices are set up, or the way that something is set up? Is it different in this situation than it was in that one, so that we don't end up in the same thing? And I know it's a different type of housing. This is lofts, and those are single-family residences, but do we know, is anyone even involved in that project? I know it was a while back, and I think John knew a lot about it, but I don't know if anyone else.
So I don't have any information on that, but I will just address some of the concerns that has been expressed here. So multi-residence is actually not prohibited in the AOA 2 district. There is a reason why we have the council use permit that allows the council to evaluate each project based on the location and other circumstances that may be associated with a request. The concern about this may set a precedent, I don't believe this will set a precedent, because any case that comes will have to be evaluated based on the criteria. So approving a multi-residence at this location, which conforms with the criteria for a council use permit, basically fulfills the requirement why this is not allowed by right, but you have to go through certain evaluation to be able to make a final determination.
Thank you. Mr. Ellsworth, were you going to?
Yeah, is the question talking about trying to regulate compatibility of typically incompatible type uses?
Well, it's whatever's happening at the Vulcan plant, we don't want to happen here. So is it just because that was multifamily, or that's single family, this is multifamily, it won't happen anyway? Or is there a way of writing the notification or letting people know that's different now that would?
What you see is what you're getting, those mitigation measures, the measures that we have in for criteria for review for conditional use permits. All those try to mitigate those types of future complaints. In this instance, we're talking about forms to the FAA. We're talking about mitigation measures as they relate to disclosure of proximity to the use. We see these as you relate to the mine, as dairy farms are another one that comes up quite a bit. It's trying to predict and control and to inform and create buffers around that. We do that through review, and as we evaluate this process through those conditional use permit criteria, and as we evaluate it against what we hear from the airport and their evaluations, we try to put those mitigation measures in place, and we try to enforce those as best we can. As the example you've brought up, we can't control the future use, but we can try to create compatibilities and notifications that people know the situations that they're starting to build in or to live in.
Okay. And Jessica, your question about saying that now it's no longer authorized, can you?
What do you mean?
I didn't understand fully what you were getting at with your
Don't
question.
get me wrong, I'm not opposed to this project, I'm for it, I love it, I think it's great, I'm happy with everything that they put in place for it. I'm always the worst case scenario, what happens if? So my question was more so, what happens down the line? And it's in place where I don't expect it to happen. One, because it is multifamily mixed use, and you're gonna have a lot more sound coming from the building itself than a normal apartment complex because of the uses underneath it. But what happens if they get a ton of complaints? Because the target's a giant box of steel, which echoes everything. This is gonna be built differently, but in the worst case scenario, something happens, the airport gets filled with dozens of calls, like hundreds of calls or thousands of calls, and they've just done this huge expansion project and we're supporting it. We want to make sure that there's something that we can do to scale it back if we have to, and if they need to change it to office or something, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. There's that ability in there if for some reason the owners don't maintain that, if it's leased or rented or owned, somebody keeps complaining. Obviously, it's right there next to the airport. But as you know, everybody says, oh yeah, I didn't realize I lived behind an airport, or a dairy farm or something, so.
But you're saying the city has the ability to say, you're going to have to change this because we're getting the complaints, is that?
Yeah.
It's just, he's talking about revoking the permit.
That's what I'm trying to understand, is that?
It would be city initiated if they didn't, I would think, meet their requirements.
So there are two things here. One is the city council specifically has the authority to revoke the council use permit if the conditions of approval are violated. So that takes us to the conditions of approval, which requires them to have a 45, decibels,
the sound thing,
sound decibels. So, and then there are other conditions associated with that. So before we can even get to revoking the council use permit, whenever there are complaints, we have to go out there and make sure that they are in violation of the conditions of approval. And normally when that happens, we'll work with them to resolve it. But if we get to the point where there is no resolution, then this will be the ultimate route to revoke the council use permit.
Right, but I think based on everything that they've been discussing and the agreements and everything, it's covered 100 different ways, so.
Yeah, the conditions of approval, it's substantial, the work that has to be done at the beginning to even get to the point where they're constructing and all that. So I feel comfortable with the conditions of approval that are in place. Any more? Yeah, it looks like. Let's do, Board Member Allen,
I wanted to commend the developer and city staff and the airport too for all your hard work on this project. I think it's great. I think a true mixed-use development, the only one that I've seen in a long time, actually the only one in Mesa, but the only one that I've seen that has this quality, even in the surrounding communities and other states. This is, to me, I'm excited about it. I've been wanting something like this for, 30-some years, I guess, and I wish it was downtown, but it's not, and that's okay. I think the location, to me, I don't have any concerns whatsoever about the multifamily there, because I think everybody is aware of it, and I think it doesn't set a precedence. I think it's only 40 units that we're talking about. And I think that people are going to choose to live there because of the environment and the development itself. I commend Mr. Bianchi, Mr. Smith's here supporting him, I presume, but I commend you guys for following through and doing such a great job at the airport. I mean, it's going gangbusters, and I want nothing but the best for the airport. I just think that this project, just my opinion, I support it. I don't think it's a precedence because, like Mr. Pugh, I think said, it's the only one in that area. But I fully support it. I think staff's done a great job with this, and that's just my opinion of it. I'm excited to see it happen.
Thank you. Board Member Crockett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just make a few brief comments on this. I think that clearly there's no safety issue with this project because those issues have been addressed through stipulations and through the FAA process that will come. And with regard to the de minimis number of units in the AOA2 contour, I can't imagine there's going to be a problem there, and I agree with Board Member Allen that people that live there are going to be looking for that urban environment, that high-energy environment, and I don't think noise from the airport is going to be an issue for them, and so I don't think it's going to open the door to other single-family development around the airport, which I do not support. But in terms of precedence, to be quite honest, I hope this project does set a precedence for the kind of, or precedent for the kind of development we have in Mesa. This is a quality project. It's exciting. It will bring jobs and employment. It will enhance the airport area, and I'm happy to support this. And I think that the applicant has agreed to all of the proposed stipulations and has agreed to continue to work with the airport and with the city through this, and I have every confidence that that will happen, so I'm pleased to support this project.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, did you have any comments?
Well, I can just keep my comments short. I'm also in favor. I've heard so many, every concern I may have for this I think has been resolved in the discussion. So ultimately, with this being multifamily and considering how close it is to the edge of this, I really think it's going to be an overall wonderful development, and I'm excited to see it come into the city. So, thank you.
Board Member Sarkisian, Board Member Boyle?
One last thing. Yeah, I feel fine about it. Everything that's come up it's made me feel comfortable in it. And then the design guide, you just knocked it out of the park. Like, I know the city is looking at design guidelines right now. This is a fantastic source to, copy, paste if you need to, or just adjust slightly. There's some really good things in here. And then I didn't realize it till Ralph said it. Jose was my professor at ASU about 20 years ago, and I give you an A.
All right. Well,
Are we ready?
yeah, I echo everything that my fellow board members have said. It's an exciting project and looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. So having said that, is there a motion to approve this case?
You bet. I would make a motion that we approve ZON 18-00775, District 6, within the 4900 block to 5200 blocks of South Power Road, east side, located south of the 202 Santan Freeway on the east side of Power Road and north of Ray Road. Rezone from AG to LC AF PAD, council use permit to allow multi-residential, commercial entertainment, hotel, and college and commercial trade school uses in the AOA 1 and AOA 2 and LC district and site plan review. That approval with conditions, along with the preliminary plat, Gallery Park, District 6, within the 4900 to 5200 blocks of South Power Road, east side located south of 202 Santan Freeway on the east side of Power Road and north of Ray Road. The preliminary plat, also approval with conditions. And these conditions are the ones that were given to us today. There's 13 conditions. Anything else that I need to add? We're good? Okay.
That's good. Thank you, Board Member Allen. Is there a second?
I could second that motion.
Okay, everyone please vote. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Apia, is there any other business for discussion?
No, there's.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, everybody vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sure it's aye. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Taylor's returned. He was my professor.